degree in waitressing, paying somebody to take care of my baby.
Mommy on purpose.
We've got all this extra competition. Why your pin would win the click over that pin. But the amount of pins you put out in a day will contribute to your success. I've never used Tailwind, but it could be done without AI. It just makes me angry.
What makes a good pin?
Pinterest over time will start to devalue AI photos.
Google obviously has pissed a lot of people off with...
Oh, Google.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today we are joined by my good friend Carly Campbell, who is a full-time stay-at-home mom turned six-figure blogger and Pinterest marketing expert. Welcome to the show, Carly.
Thank you. I am very excited to be here.
Hey, Carly, thanks for coming on. To kick things off, you're well known in the Pinterest space, so why don't you tell us about your marketing background and how you got into the Pinterest space?
Okay. Originally, I have a degree in waitressing, and I did that for a decade. And then as I approached the time in my life when we started to think about having a family, I started to think that going to work as a waitress and leaving my baby at home, or worse, paying somebody to take care of my baby for almost equal to what I was earning, sounded like a real bad life plan. So I started a blog to make money. That was the thing. Pinterest told me that you could start a blog to make money. There were articles that said that. They sounded too good to be true, but I'm one of those people that believes that a lot of things are possible that, that don't necessarily sound possible. So I started in early 2016, and I bought a foundational type how to blog course. And it was how to have your blog as a business. And this course is retired now. It was really thorough, but it was really thorough as far as business goes, but it kind of glossed over strategy for platforms. So there was not really any SEO strategy or Pinterest strategy or Facebook strategy, for example. And there was a group of girls. We were doing the course together. We had met, in the forum for the course. And we decided to divide and conquer platforms. We assigned everybody a platform. You're supposed to go learn the platform, come back, teach everybody else the platform. So we weren't all learning 6 platforms, and mine was Pinterest. And so I just went all in on Pinterest, and I have never looked back.
What were the other platforms? Just curious.
Facebook. SEO was we considered that a platform at the time. Instagram was starting to, become a place where people thought that there was traffic. There was another one back then that nobody uses anymore. It was like a blog sharing.
Okay, that's what I was curious. It's lucky that you picked one that stuck around. If you would have picked one that died out, it would have been a wasted effort.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But Pinterest has been really reliable throughout the course of my entire blogging career.
That's awesome. So you started Mommy on Purpose, and that was the site that I transitioned to my first site into Mommy on Purpose, because I didn't actually have a baby when I started the site. Oh, okay. So at what point then did you start earning enough money to give up the waitressing job and go full throttle into this?
9 months.
9 months. Wow.
9 months in. That was
fast.
good. It was fortunate that happened, because I had a baby 9 months in, and there was no going back to the waitressing.
Oh, that is so cool. And was the majority of your traffic and therefore revenue being generated from Pinterest at that point? Yeah,
at that time it was 100% generated from Pinterest, because the foundational course that I took hadn't actually covered, SEO or anything like that. I wasn't getting any SEO traffic. And a lot of the SEO mistakes that I made on my website were foundational, because I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So yeah, it was largely Pinterest. And to this day, most of my blog-based revenue is Pinterest.
So I'm guessing the HCU Google update didn't have a big impact on you, but I'm curious, you have a big community now. Did it have a big impact on your community?
I mean, I almost don't like to say it didn't bother me that much, because I feel like it's very offensive to the community in general. That was somewhere between 20 and 40,000 page views a month. I don't actually even track my Google traffic that closely. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to say exactly what the loss was. And for me, it was a little slower. I actually wasn't affected at all. I had helpful content update in September, but then I felt effects of it later, was there another little update in
around
December?
March, yeah.
March, okay, to March. So
there were a couple in between there.
That one got me. Yeah, initially no effect whatsoever. So I don't know if that is just due to the lack of like wild success I had prior to the helpful content update. Well, and partly because a lot of my Google traffic was based on Pinterest traffic. You know, the social signals to a page will boost that page in Google, or maybe not anymore. You guys would know, but I wouldn't know in the old days. And I had such strong social signals from Pinterest to certain posts. Those were the posts that we found often ranking in Google anyway. But yeah, the community at large, people turned to Pinterest, which was good for me. But that's, you know, one more scenario where I sort of feel terrible saying like, oh, that was great for me. So it's hard, yeah.
But it gave you an opportunity to help more, I would say, because, you know, now people, before Pinterest, maybe for some blogs, it was a huge focus, a huge traffic source. But I'm guessing a lot of people, it was a minor focus, and now it's becoming a major focus. So it gives you a better chance to help those people.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the community expanded. I actually believe there was a lot of Pinterest traffic, Pinterest-focused bloggers prior to the helpful content update as well. You just didn't... The circles weren't mixing as much the way that as they were before. I mean, certainly our circles have mixed, you know, like Chris and I have done a number of things together in the past, but the average blogger who isn't, you know, podcasting in this space or blogging in this space. Yeah, they were really in like separate corners of the internet, and it's been interesting to see those worlds collide over the last year.
Well, I've been in your Facebook group for quite a while now, and lovely community, by the way. If you are just starting out, I definitely recommend that you join it. Everyone in there is so awesome. It was probably one of my first places that I found when I joined the online world and wanted to, you know, when you don't know something and you start searching in these groups and then you see that someone's asked the exact same question that you were asking and there's an answer and you think, oh, everybody replies to you, and it's really, really good. But I remember when I was in there and I could see that Pinterest was a focus. I obviously went the SEO route, but I did try Pinterest. I took your course as well. I'm not an artistic type, and I could see the potential in it. I just couldn't get to grips with the pin creation, which was a lot harder maybe 3 years ago, with less tools, in my opinion. And and the dedication to like a strategy. So I thought the slow burn from SEO was more sort of suited to my personality. But I could see the potential, and oh my God, I wanted some of that sweet Pinterest traffic, but I just didn't know how to get it. So what's working now with Pinterest? How much has that changed in terms of strategy and how to deal with that as a platform to drive traffic to your website?
I mean, to be completely honest, and I think it frustrates people when I say this, I don't actually think it has changed that much in the last few years. Now, aspects of it have changed. I mean, competition. We've got, you know, we've got all this extra competition joining the platform now. And so that's a big consideration. Because of that, I think now more than ever, even though, you know, 5-6 years ago, niche was still a consideration, I think that niche is still a consideration now. Your site, Chris, was like finance and self-improvement and productivity, right? Those niches. In general, those niches are harder on Pinterest because they're not visual niches. So if your ideas can be represented well by an image, you are more likely to succeed on Pinterest faster. There's certainly room for all those niches to do well on Pinterest, but it is going to be a more uphill battle. It's, you know, because for every 10 posts you put out, especially early on, you might find one winner, or, you know, your ratio might be even a little bit lower to begin with. As those winners gain traction, it can kind of like snowball everything else that's happening. But that initial break into the feed can take a lot longer in those niches that aren't highly visual. And so that's a real consideration for Pinterest now as much as ever. But we also need to consider now with the advent of AI, our visual niches are more competitive than they were before. And people are putting out pins at a faster rate than they were before. And you need to know why your pin would win the click over that pin. And if you can't articulate that, then you're still just playing a game of luck, which I think it's always been a little bit of a game of luck, but you really want to have a solid understanding these days of why the platform behaves the way it does, why your content may perform well or why it might not. And of course, lastly, I would think that as Pinterest has pushed towards shopping, which is something it's been doing since 2018, 2019. When did it IPO? 2018. As they push towards becoming a shopping platform, that constantly affects the way that different keywords are treated inside the platform. And so we really need to have a hyper awareness of the kind of content we're creating and the relationship that could have, or the Pinterest could perceive that it has, with the shopping intent.
So you said the main sort of process is still the same with Pinterest. It's gotten a little more competitive, but overall it's business as usual. But AI is making it more competitive. I would imagine that also changes your strategy of how you're creating pins. How's your strategy changed since the AI image tools have come out and become so easy to use?
So I don't use any AI image tools, and AI hasn't changed my strategy at all, other than I like to look at my pins and say, does this hold its own against an AI image? I have recently increased my rate of pins. Now, I mean, depending on who you talk to, there's people pin a broad number of pins. You talk to people who pin 1 a day, you talk to people who are pinning 50 and up a day. Wow. And so when I say I've increased my rate of pins, I mean I've gone from pinning 3 to 4 pins 3 to 4 times a week to we'd like to see up to 10 pins a day going out on our account. Now we don't always hit that target because we don't use AI, but I do think slightly more is better because the AI accounts are putting out pins at a rate. If you're only putting out 1 pin a day and your competitor is putting out 50 a day, they might only get 1 win out of 50 and you might get 1 win out of 5, but it's actually still not going to be enough. Eventually at that rate, they're going to overtake you. So a slightly increased rate of pinning is really the only thing that's changed for me right now.
Okay. Wow, I'm just thinking back to my days. I'm fascinated to know the actual granular. You did mention before we came on about a recent case study you did, so I'd love to know. If I remember from my days, I was part of the whole, you had to join group boards and get permission from other group board members to then post and share to group boards. I was making my pins on tools like I think it was Canva, and I was using Tailwind, if I remember, to automate and schedule. And then I was also repeating pins with just ever so slight variations on color and title. I think at one point I tried to do 10, 20 a day through Tailwind, and then I went down to 2 a day, but to different blog posts. So, I mean, I was all over the place. I followed Pinteresting strategies, but it didn't work after a week. So I was like, come on, let's just...
It's taking forever.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to know, how you would advise a beginner, let's say, with a good website and good content. Also, if you could touch on what the content should be behind the pin to maximize the strategy as well. That'd be really good.
Okay, so content behind the pin should be good quality, first of all, because time on page and bounce rate and things, those are actually signals that Pinterest is looking at, and that makes sense. I mean, if you're serving up people a bad experience, they're going to leave. That's foundational internet, right? So that's key. But then secondarily, I mean, what is the Pinterest user there for? The Pinterest user is there for inspiration, ideas, sometimes instruction, but they're not there for research. And if you cross that line too far, you just cannot get Pinterest traffic to research type subjects. I often hear people in travel telling me that travel's not a good niche on Pinterest. Oh, travel's actually a great niche on Pinterest. At the ideation stage, you cross over into the research stage, the best hotel in Cancun to stay with kids. If the person is ideating this, great hotels to stay in Cancun with kids, you could get some Pinterest traffic there. As soon as they know the name of that hotel, that's a Google question. That's a research question now. It's no longer ideation. And so you really need to be clear about that. Also, that visual aspect. When people come to Pinterest, they are rarely looking for text content. There's a place for it. Certainly. And there's, once you have the click, you can engage the reader. You're a fantastic writer. You understand on page. Oh, Neil
journey.
Can tell you. Yeah, Neil used to call it, it was he called it, SEO copywriting. He called it SEO copywriting, and I saved that link for years and years and years. I don't know if he ever updated that, but if your SEO copywriting is fantastic, you can keep people on the page for a long time, and text is fine, but image-based articles do tend to outperform on Pinterest by a landslide. We just see that. So those things are considerations, for what your content should be like. And then as far as strategy goes, starting with your content, you can determine how many pins you're doing. You said you tried 30, you said you tried 1. Well, 1 pin a day is appropriate when there's one idea inside that content. And so again, we find that text-based content that's not image heavy lends itself to fewer pins. You're more likely to pin 1 a day if your article is all text-based and there's no way really to represent it well with an image. And so if your article is image heavy and there's multiple ideas in that image, you're much, you can find 30 pins to put out in the day much easier than you can if it's all text-based. So the kind of content will dictate the amount of pins you can put out in a day, but the amount of pins you put out in a day will contribute to your success. And when I say that, obviously I don't mean you can put out that one image 30 times and expect to see the same success as if you have 30 different images, because that's 30 pieces of content versus one. And so that matters. Experimenting, on your content with 1 pin or 2 pins a day versus 30 is a great thing to do. But understanding the foundational difference between one idea versus 30 ideas in a piece of content is really important. Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Do you think? Okay.
Yeah, you did. The other part of that was the actual strategy of posting, like with Tailwind. Is that tool still being used? And then something else I used to see is people would put, you had the vertical image for Pinterest, and it was kind of a bad user experience. You have like a recipe post, and if you're scrolling through all those images, so people were hiding them. Is that still a strategy, or maybe just walk us through like the strategy of you've got your post, you've got a couple different images you want to use. How do you schedule it? What do you do with that image on the page?
When you say bad user experience, I'm really curious. Do you mean like if you put a pin image in the post, if it's too long, you feel like that's a bad user experience?
Yeah, and especially if you do several of them.
You do several of them?
You just want to get to that recipe, and you've got, multiple images you got to scroll past.
And they used to be massive. People would put the massive,
massive.
Yes. Okay, so I believe that there is a place for a singular, not a whole bunch, in your recipe, a singular good pin image at the very start of your blog post. And I still put that right after the intro, because if you have a lazy load on and you put them all to bottom, they're not going to load, on time. If you don't get to the bottom, they're not going to be loaded for pinning. So I put one above so that it's loaded when people get past. I think that on a phone, the experience isn't as bad. For one, if you have a whole bunch, I totally agree. On a phone, it's not so bad. It's like a single swipe usually through that. And I think that you just cannot overcome the downfall of not having pin images in your post by hiding them. So I do hide images in my post, but usually I'll hide an alternate image in case they didn't like that one, or if there's multiple ideas, and I want to make a feature image for multiple ideas, I'll just choose my favorite that goes in the post, and then we'll hide another 1 or 2. And then I'll also make another, depending on the amount of ideas in the post, the amount of images that'd be appropriate, I'll make another 6, 8, 10, and we'll put them on Pinterest, not attached to the post anymore. Like, they're linked to the post on Pinterest, but they're not in the blog post, and users couldn't pin them from the blog post. If I get one of those over time that wildly outperforms the one that I chose, swap that out so that that's the one people are pinning in the future. Tailwind is still a thing. People do use Tailwind. I've never used Tailwind. I like to schedule my pins inside Pinterest. Really, if you're not aiming for hundreds of pins a week, then there's no downfall to using the Pinterest native scheduler. If you're aiming for hundreds of pins a week, the native scheduler becomes extremely limiting, because you can only have 100 scheduled in there in 1 week, or at any time, 100 period. And you can only go, it used to be a month out, but I think now you can go 6 weeks out. I could be wrong about that. It might still be a month, which means you can never work very far ahead if you're trying to do a high number of pins, because we max out at 10 a day. We can be scheduled out, for 10 days out. So that's not a problem for us. It's free. So that's a bonus. And I always default to, if Pinterest is ever going to limit the distribution of everything, it's not going to be the pins that were created on their own platform. And I mean, that's a debate that's gone on in the space for years and years and years, but
makes sense though.
It does. Yeah, I think it does. So yeah, it is a thing. You can use it, but I've never found a need to.
Okay. That's awesome. You mentioned to us about this case study that you'd done. You're not going to share the URL or the niche, which is fine, but I think you achieved like pretty awesome traffic numbers in a relatively short space of time. So could you walk us through that?
Yeah. So I have a friend, Tony Hill. Mm-hmm. We have a podcast together about Pinterest, and we are always going back and forth about Pinterest ideas. And he was pinning a lot more pins a day than I was. Now that's a big debate in this space for a long time. How many pins a day should you be pinning? He's doing a lot more than I was, and I wanted to try more. But he was also taking a different approach to his use of boards on the platform than I was. He was using a board for every blog post. I was using a board as much as I possibly could use it before I made another board. So we're talking about drastically different ends of the spectrum here. And I wanted to experiment with some of these concepts like more pins and more boards, but I didn't want to do it on my account where I make all my money and, it's my livelihood. So I also didn't want to do it on an account that had 9 years of history because that history affects the way the account behaves now. So I needed a new account for this. And I thought like all of these people on Twitter starting Pinterest accounts and getting them into Mediavine within 3 months, like if I can't do that, then I'll be done because nobody's going to want to listen to me and what I have to say if I can't do that. So
a lot of pressure.
It did. It felt like a little bit of pressure. It actually really regretted it for a little while after I announced that I would do it. Like with the deep sadness, like that kind of regret. And so then I wanted just to really, really make it extra complicated. And I said I would not do it with AI. No AI for me. So I did hire a VA to help me with the creation of the content. But what we did was we bought PLR content from creators who make their own blog posts and then sell it over again. Or it wasn't all PLR. A lot of it was semi-exclusive. So they'll sell it 4 or 5 times or whatever. So this wasn't exclusive content. It's probably terrible for SEO. I can see you guys thinking that. Don't ever do this for SEO. But for Pinterest, 4 or 5 times didn't matter. Plus, I was using the content differently. So I bought all this content. We invested about $10,000 up front to get the content and get the site put together. The vast majority of that cost was content cost because we started with about 200 articles at around $45 a piece. And we bought articles with really beautiful images. So it would be Pinterest friendly. We posted all the articles. We took all of the ideas found the common thread that ran through, every 10 or 15 or 20 of them. And we made roundups of those ideas. So now we've got even more content. And we leaned really heavily into Christmas. I knew that with the niche I was working in, we weren't going to achieve these kind of results in March, right? Because there are just different times of year when these things go wild on the platform. So we leaned really heavily into Christmas content. We started pinning. We waited until we had 100 articles published to start pinning. And this was a really key aspect in the competition with AI sites. They come out of the gate onto Pinterest with a lot ready, and they keep going with new URLs at a rate that traditional content creators will struggle to keep up with. And those new URLs are really important to Pinterest. So we waited till we had 100 articles published before we started pinning so that we could come out of the gate consistent, introducing a new URL every day rather than, I write an article this week and then I get my kid has a broken leg and a meeting at school and a doctor's appointment and I don't put up another article for 3 weeks. That happens all the time. That is not good for a Pinterest account these days when your competitors are putting up a new URL every day. And we started pinning on September, I want to say the 13th. We were accepted into Journey on, I think, the 22nd of October. Full Mediavine on the 5th of December or something like that. And it had 100,000 page views for the month right after Christmas. Now, of course, some of that is Christmas traffic, and it's normal to expect a drop after that. But just the fact that it could be done without AI was really encouraging for me. It gave me a lot of hope for the next couple years on the internet. It was really interesting to see how easy it was. And
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Did you share earnings for that case study?
For the initial 3 months, absolutely. So the first month on Journey, now this is just coming out of my head. So if you find things posted online later that call me a big fat liar, then I apologize profusely. But I'm pretty sure the first month on Journey, we made $1,400 US dollars. And then by the time we wrapped up our Christmas traffic, and we had done a lot of a lot of Christmas stuff. So we were properly positioned for the season. We had made $4,000. And so you'll notice not covered the cost of the site. But it's not like the site is done now that Christmas is over. It's still earning, not at the rate of $4,000 every Christmas season, but it's coming.
Are you still creating new content for it then, or is the case?
No, yeah, because I didn't share it publicly. I did share it publicly as like a masterclass. So some people, but we're talking about a small number of people, 400 people, saw it publicly. Because I didn't share it publicly, I am still creating content for it. I have really big hopes for it for the summer. Initially, I thought seasonality was the way that we did this. Seasonality is so important on Pinterest. We lean so hard into Christmas. Initially, I thought I'll lean hard into Valentine's Day and then I'll lean hard into Easter. And then, we'll catch all these small holidays. But after I watched the way things stabilized after Christmas, and stabilized at a lower place than what it had been over Christmas. It occurred to me that some time should be spent building out the evergreen content. Forfeit the holiday traffic this year for all the minor holidays to spend the time building out the evergreen content. Now, maybe this is where AI would beat me here, but I actually think that regardless of what happens with AI over the next year, my site, it is drama proof. Like whatever happens with AI, this site is solid. So we've actually not done that much content for the minor holidays. Our next big season that we'll lean into is summer, because there's an opportunity there for 3 months of traffic versus the 1 week of traffic that you get for Valentine's and St. Patrick's. And so that
makes sense.
Yeah. I wish I had had that realization before Christmas, because the thing about Pinterest is every piece of evergreen content we're putting out could have also gotten an extra push during the Christmas season at the time if we had done it at the same time. But that is what it is. It's a good lesson.
So what was your actual pin strategy for that site then, in terms of number of pins? And you mentioned something about doing something different with the boards. I don't know if you and Tony decided something to do with the boards.
So what I did for the boards was I still couldn't, I couldn't quite proceed with the 1 board a day strategy. The 1 board per post strategy. But because I wanted to experiment with his like general idea of many more boards than I have ever used in the past, I did a board for every major theme. Like, I've got these cluster of posts that have the same idea and a board that have this cluster. And sometimes I would say like, this is a great major theme. There's a lot of potential here. And also there's a whole nother way to say this. For example, keto diet friendly foods. Okay, well, low carb, that's another way to say keto. It's a whole different keyword. Same content can be used in both contexts. So why not make that board too? Why just 1 board? And so a lot more boards, places to put the content. That was something that I did. And then because I was shooting for more pins, we got up to 20 pins a day really quickly and introduced at least 1 new URL a day and sometimes 2. And so that's very different than what I've done in the past. Now that Christmas is over, the push is over, proved I could do it. We're down to 10 pins a day, because I want to do other things with my life too. So we're down to 10 pins a day, and we are only introducing new URLs 2-3 times a week now. Well, maybe 4. We've just really stepped back our speed, which contributes to slower growth. But the point then was growth, and the point now is maintenance and growth over time.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I'm very curious about this content strategy. So I'm not very familiar with this. You said you were buying content they were only selling to several people. This wouldn't work in the SEO space. So I'm very curious. How does that work? And then was the main point of this because they had their own images? Like otherwise AI content would have made sense? Was that the main thing? The content has really good images?
Well, the content does have beautiful images. Now, that doesn't mean that AI doesn't also make beautiful images, but AI is controversial. I personally don't like AI. My Facebook feed is inundated with AI, and it just makes me angry. I want to see the truth. I want to see real. And I don't like that my children are growing up in a world where you can't know if anything's real. So I had that kind of motivation, but also in this space and in the Pinterest space particularly, it's made a lot of people feel like the work that they've done for the last decade or 2 decades will soon be obsolete. Is there a way that we could use our content that we already have created, or a new way that we could approach creating content that can compete with AI? Because if we can't compete with AI, let's quit now. I think that's actually not what I would do. I would keep going, but that's how people feel. In these Facebook groups where people sell content, it's huge in the food niche, it's huge in the kids activities niche, it's huge in the DIY niche. You can get crafts and people who make self-care products, lotions, lip balms, that kind of stuff, bath bombs. You can get all of these things. They make them at home, they photograph them, and they'll sell them 4 times, 5 times. Some really great photographers will sell them 10 times, but they shoot them all at a slightly different angle. So the idea is the same, but the actual image is slightly different. That is important to me. I think that having a slightly different image benefits you on Pinterest. Obviously, this won't work in every niche, or at least not yet. I would like to see more creators doing this as a side hustle. If you're doing home renovation and you take a lot of photos of it and you're willing to sell that, and in that niche, maybe you sell those for more than $45. Maybe you sell them 15 times. Because a lot of this content doesn't it doesn't just have to be one blog post. For example, sensory bins, okay? Kids sensory bins. We see those all the time in this semi-exclusive space. It doesn't just have to be one blog post about this one sensory bin. People are less likely to engage with that anyway on Pinterest than they are about 10 sensory bin ideas. So now you've got and it does mean that some of these, multiple idea type posts that I've published, I guess their cost is more like $450, but they make that back. And so that doesn't deter me. And then over time, the individual posts also start earning lesser at a slower rate, but they do.
Okay, let's stay on Pinterest. Just a couple more questions from me. Anyway, what are you using to make your pins? What tools? And what makes a good pin?
So I use PicMonkey to make my pins. I know Canva is the way that I like the quality of the pins that come out of PicMonkey better. And then I use the images that I purchase, or for years and years and years, I've used stock photos also. I do have a mom lifestyle site, which is actually ironically not image-based posts. It's mostly text-based posts. That's a harder row to hoe on Pinterest than image-based things are, but I use stock photos for that site because the image isn't the main purpose of the post, and that's done fine. So you collect your image from wherever you're getting it, take it to PicMonkey, put it in a pin. In general, I think that it's niche dependent, and you always have to go check Pinterest to see what's doing well in your niche. But in general, I like my pins to be tall. I believe that tall pins, 750 by 1500 pixels, I believe that outperforms short pins 9 out of 10 times. Short being 1000 by 1500. That said, I've known a guy for years who does 50% square images and 50% long images, and his square images perform really well. I think it just depends on the niche. You should check the niche. He is the exception rather than the rule. So tall, I put text on my pins 90% of the time. I think that the data shows that your text overlay images will inspire a click-through probably, again, 9 times out of 10 compared to those images that don't have text. The images that don't have text will get more saves, but I'm not AI, and I need to focus my work hours on what's going to actually produce the most return, and so I make my text overlay images. And lastly, I think the next most important, or maybe the most important consideration for your pin, what makes a good pin, is the user intent. Are you conveying to the user the clear message? Your marketing, you have the opportunity to use your image and to use your words, and you get one chance, 1 second while they're scrolling past and you're competing with all the other pins. You need to nail the user intent of that user. They need to know that pin's for them, and they need to know why it's for them when they scroll past it. So that looks different in every niche.
The niches you're working in, it sounds like the main monetization is ads, right? You've mentioned the different ad networks you're on. So let's say you're driving them back to the site. They see the ads. That's how those sites are monetized. Does Pinterest traffic work for other monetization strategies? Can it work for e-commerce, like driving the traffic back, or service businesses? Have you seen good examples of that working in other spaces or other monetization methods?
I believe that you can do whatever you want with your traffic. I personally have experience in a little tiny bit of e-com. And I guess when people say e-com, they probably mean Shopify or Etsy or some platform where they're selling. I've never used Pinterest personally to sell digital products on a platform, but I thought could I just increase revenue per user in a particular blog post by selling something in this blog post that gets good traffic? It's not my primary focus, but I took a PDF, a printable PDF. I put it in a viral blog post. This blog post at the time was getting around 100,000 page views a month from Pinterest, and put it in there. And the PDF made $1,000 a month for as long as the blog post was viral. And that was on top of the $4,000 to $5,000 a month that the blog post was making in display ads. So it didn't actually detract from the display ad revenue. It sold well. Is that well if I'm an e-com store and I'm only converting 0.1% of my visitors know. But if for somebody who had the traffic and just wanted to increase the earnings there, it was really successful. For service-based businesses, I think that you really need to focus on connecting with the user so that they want to come to you. They're not going to come to Pinterest to look for your service. But once you have that inroad with them, that opportunity to get to know them, get them on your list, connect with them, you'll be able to sell them a service that way. So I think that can work, but you need to stop thinking like sales first. You need to start thinking relationship first. And affiliate marketing is great on Pinterest too. And a lot of people think that means pinning your affiliate links to Pinterest. That's not what I mean. I don't know anybody who makes a full-time income doing that, but putting affiliate links in your blog posts and converting through the text of your blog posts is really effective. I don't use Amazon or anything like that anymore. We don't prioritize it. I'm really upset at Amazon for all the things they've done to bloggers over the past few years. And I still get a check for a few $100s from Amazon every month from some old blog posts somewhere that get a trickle of traffic. So if I was to put effort into that, I think we would still see revenue from affiliate marketing.
That's awesome. I think it's so cool how you've just because of all those years ago, you drawing the Pinterest straw for having to be the one that tests that platform to really sticking through it. Because even when I was like heavily in your group like 3 or 4 years ago, there was still Pinterest drama, like Pinterest platform drama, algorithm changes.
Oh, so much drama.
Yeah, but you've just stuck through it and really carved an amazing niche out for yourself, and you're really like fighting the front for your community as well by testing and discovering. So I just think that's absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
Speaking of drama, Google obviously has pissed a lot of people off with
Google.
The way that it's treated its creators.
They're good at it, They got to stick what you're good at.
What's your view on how Pinterest has handled its creators on its platform, how it's managed its platform and over the years?
I'm afraid that I will get a lot of flack for saying this, but we need to remember that we're using their platform. And people complain in the group all the time about Pinterest customer service. Like, define customer. They don't owe us anything. And that's really frustrating. I mean, yes, of course, we've given them the content that they need. But we need to remember that within a few months, maybe a few years, they won't need us for content anymore. Whatever AI they want to drum up to generate all their content, they can do that. I believe they still will use us. I hope that I don't panic anybody by saying that. I believe that we still have a place on Pinterest for years, but they don't owe us anything. Moving forward, if we push too hard, we push the envelope, we're going to pin 1,000 pins a week, and we're going to do it, with AI and slight variations. As far back as 2017 and 2018, Pinterest was talking in their engineering blog about the data processing problem. They referred to it as a problem. When you're trying to process data at that scale, it's expensive. It's man hours, and it's eating away at their business. And we're not helping by publishing 1,000 pins a week that are all slightly the same, that are all targeting exactly the same keywords. We're not contributing to their ecosystem. And then we expect them to, hire a team of 1,000 to answer all of our emails when our traffic drops a little bit. And it's unrealistic. So I don't actually, whereas Google is a completely different situation. Google runs the ad exchange. Google has profited directly off of our content in a completely different way than Pinterest has. Pinterest actually doesn't profit off our content. They sell ads on the platform, and whether our content is there is not really relevant to them. But so, yeah, I think that Pinterest has actually, in the ways that it has been able to, it has done things to be more creator friendly. They've got good tools, as good as we should expect free tools to be, to create our content on their platform. They've done what they can to promote creator content. And when I say that, I'm talking about unique things. Like we often see them featuring in their newsletters, like these really bizarre things. You're like, nobody's searching for that. That feels frustrating as somebody who's not creating those kinds of things. But it does speak to the value that I think they see in unique ideas, creators who are doing the real work of creating.
That's cool.
So
that's
I don't have anything against them that way.
I think that's really cool as well, because it seems like it's been a more, maybe not if you're deep in the group, but it seems like it's been more of a steady source. I think maybe you also need to have a certain personality type as well for Pinterest, possibly. Maybe that's why I didn't succeed with it. I'm not artistic at all in any way, shape or form. Yeah, I think it's really cool that there is still opportunities for people to get started and make money online. And I think if you've got any form of like passion or hobby or anything which lends itself to something visual, then it's like two birds with one stone. It's like, well, you're doing that anyway. You can try and just do this part-time and make some money. So I think it's great that there's still opportunities. And down with the robots, I say. That's my
Yes, I love it. I do. I know that AI is here to stay and the robots are here to stay, but I still really believe that human first content, people first content that's created for people by people, I think that there's value in it now. And I think that as the rest of humanity becomes more aware of what AI is and does, I think that people will seek out that content. I
agree.
Do. Yeah. That's so. I believe that we just need to hold on through the next few years.
I think people will get sick of the AI content. Like if you're looking at travel photos, you don't want to see a fake photo. If you're looking at food photos, you don't want to see something fake. No. And I think I would imagine Pinterest over time will start to devalue AI photos. I mean, it would make sense if the users want to see real photos. Why push tons of AI photos onto the platform? So hopefully we'll see something like that where they start to devalue mass-produced AI photos and elevate more the creators who are coming up with beautiful, unique photos.
I agree, and I actually think that because Pinterest is such a personalized platform, like it knows what you like and what you engage with. I actually think there's probably a future where there are some people who really love those like weird AI images. They love to engage with them. Those people will probably continue to see AI images, and the rest of the people who don't want to see AI images, like Pinterest's ability to differentiate A from B is so good and getting better all the time. We may see that happen, and it kind of sounds like a happy ending for everybody.
It sounds like it's the start of World War III if it's going to separate the AI and the non-AI lovers into two halves.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Maybe final penultimate question. For, let's say, larger companies that are in Pinterest-friendly niches and they have budget to outsource, is outsourcing Pinterest a viable strategy? Have you seen it work? Do you recommend that to brands that it could work for? Yeah,
I think outsourcing Pinterest is a viable strategy, but I think you have to be very, very careful who you outsource to. And I don't, at this moment, have go here. If you're a giant brand and you want to outsource Pinterest, go there. I don't have a recommendation like that. But I think that if you just take the time, take a couple courses, even if you never intend to do it yourself, go through a couple courses, really understand the platform. Once you understand the platform, you'll be able to look at the work that the brand is doing for their other clients, or the agency or whatever. You'll be able to tell, do these people understand Pinterest? Do they understand what we're trying to achieve here? Do they understand what contributes to traffic? And just make sure that whoever you are outsourcing does understand those things.
Are you seeing any brands crushing it on Pinterest outside of like the obvious massive ones that are just doing it through sheer brand recognition?
I do not spend a lot of time looking at what other people are doing on Pinterest.
Okay. You don't use Pinterest then? As a scroller?
When I'm growing a new account, I have like a dummy account from my phone that I'll scroll on, and I'll save my own pins when they appear in the feed just to get those initial signals, happening. But no, as a rule, I used to use Pinterest all the time. And just there's just less time to sit down and scroll Pinterest just for fun than I used to. But even if I don't pay attention to the individual brands whose pins I'm seeing. And that's important. People get really concerned about their profile on Pinterest. Nobody's going to your profile. Not going there. Don't spend your time there. Not worth it. So yeah, it's really about, you got the pin. It's just like SEO in the fact that people come in to your post via the link that they've seen. They engage with that post and then they leave. They're not hanging around on your website.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Carly, I think this is a good place to leave it. I know you've got the podcast with Tony out, Pin Simple, is it called?
Pin Talk podcast.
Pin Talk.
Yeah.
So I only just realized that was out actually a couple of days ago. I think you posted a new episode, so I will check that out. Where else can people find you? I think you've just launched Pinteresting Strategies to 2025 as well. So
Pinteresting Strategies 2025 is out. The entire course now is a walkthrough of the strategy that I used on the new site, but it's built on the foundations of like my 9-year-old site. So you'll find, if you've ever done the old version of the course like you did, Chris, you'd find overlapping concepts with new updated for 2025 suggestions, like more boards than I've ever suggested using before in the past. A slightly higher number of pins than we've ever suggested before. I do have the free Facebook group, the one that you were in, blogging like you mean it.
Come and see us in there.
Yes, that'd be great. That'd be great. That is it's still a really good place to go for info, because we have so many people who've been in the space for so long, guys like yourself, and everybody's always willing to answer questions, which is I'm very 100%. Grateful for to the whole community. It's just awesome.
Well, that's perfect. We can add all of the links to that in the show notes, so people can find you in those places. Carly's been a fantastic talk. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Carly.
And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers, Building Brands and Links with Linkify. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkify, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkify.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.